think we are good to go.
Awesome. Well, hello, everybody. We at the USAEL are so excited to kick off today's edition of the Careers in Esports.
It's crazy to say, but this is episode 10 in our recurring series that aims to provide students, educators, and esports enthusiasts with a unique opportunity to explore a multitude of jobs and career pathways in esports.
And you all should know the deal by now. Every month, we talk to a different expert from the world of esports and gaming. This roster includes professional players, coaches, game developers, tournament organizers, and others to give our listeners firsthand insights and expert advice on pursuing a career in the gaming industry.
Our guest list is full of industry veterans stemming from companies and organizations that have established a significant presence in the space, with Blizzard Entertainment, Riot Games, and Ubisoft, just to name a few.
But first, let's begin with some introductions. My name is Rich Conti.
And I'm Peter Poliglov.
And we are your recurring hosts for the Careers in Esports series.
Rich, are you excited to introduce our next guest today?
1000%. Today should be a good one. We are talking with someone with tons of experience with some really big dogs in the industry. So without further ado, it is my privilege to introduce to our audience James Shilkret, Associate Director of Esports for North America at Ubisoft. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, good. Guys, thank you for inviting me. This is great. I'm excited to be number 10 when it comes to your episodes.
It's a good, strong number.
Yes, I like it.
Some key moments from James' career include working with the Los Angeles Galaxy Soccer Club, Activision Blizzard, and North Street Gamers before transitioning to Ubisoft.
So James, before we do get too deep into things, just to kind of open us up here, what's your favorite game, would you say, if you had to pick one?
My favorite game. Gosh, I would say, I'm probably going to age myself, but probably GoldenEye is probably my favorite game. I've actually went to go play it a few months ago, and it's like watching A-Team on TV. Like you're going, oh, this used to be really awesome when I was a kid, and then you get into it, you're like, I really like this when I was a kid, but I think GoldenEye. But I think right now, what I'm playing the most right now is probably getting heavy into X Defiant. I'm terrible at it. It's a obviously a new game for Ubisoft that had a preseason back in May. So I'm just trying to get really good understanding of the game. But if it wasn't that, it's definitely Overwatch. Where I play a ton of that, and always playing a tank. Reinhardt is my go-to when it comes to my main.
I still remember the soundtrack from the original GoldenEye games.
Oh, it's
they
banging.
put a lot of effort.
It is. I remember putting a lot of hours in that, being odd job, and I play with my sons, like I said a few months ago, and they were perplexed of like how the game is compared to the games now. So it's like this is my back in my day moment playing games, which is interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of gaming, let's actually go ahead and jump right into our first question. James, what role has gaming and sports played in your life, and where did that passion start?
Yeah, I mean, for me, everything kind of started with when I was at a very young age of 4 playing soccer. I think soccer has always been in my life, starting at age 4, from playing AYSO all the way up to high school to college, and even playing today in over 45 league in my local area here. So I've always played it. I've coached it, and I've used a lot of my lessons in life through soccer, from personal to even work, even gaming for that matter, of like how I should view working as a team is one big piece of it. Also, just overall working together and trying to put the best plan together to win and be in success no matter what it is. And then gaming is really like I would say I grew up gaming as a young age too, but the thing is, it's different between young age now to when I was young, where like gaming was an emerging industry in general. Atari 64 to I even had a Bally Midway game system going into like Nintendo 64, Sega Dreamcast and Genesis, all those, like, kind of growing up as the industry was growing up. So it's been very different than what it is now, because like when you play with your friends, you didn't play in different countries, different cities. You had to play all in one room, looking at a quadrant on a screen, right, and kind of cheating a little bit, seeing what they're doing. But it's been, it's played a major role of what I'm doing today, which is like, if you told me 15 years ago I'll be working in gaming, I would be like, there's no such thing as esports. What is this? What are you talking about? So I think it led me to this area where soccer kind of has the same, I say, has parallel life as gaming, of especially in the United States, from being a sport that no one really watched or cared about 20 some odd years ago to what it is today, where there's sold out stadiums across the US, where gaming is the same thing, where it's like, it was just something you played in your basement or in your game room, to now playing in front of thousands of people across the world, which is it's been a very interesting way of witnessing gaming in general. It's been fun.
And coming from a background of playing live soccer, have you ever tried your hand at FIFA or any of the competitive sports games?
Madden, yes. I played Madden a bunch when I was a kid. Actually, in college, a lot of NHL, a lot of NFL 2K went on the Dreamcast, which was kind of started that new look and feel of football games. FIFA in the beginning, yes, but now it's like, it is hard, man. There's a lot of buttons and a lot of things differently when I used to play, and just like every other game, even like X Defiant, where it's like, I am too slow for this, but I try my best. But no, not new FIFA, but like back in old school FIFA, definitely. Like back in those Sega days, yeah.
And James, one question I had, I always like to ask this of people with a background in traditional sports, is have you ever seen commonalities between traditional sports and esports, or have you taken any skills that you've built in traditional sports and used them in gaming or life itself?
Yeah, I think going back to my times with the Galaxy and MLS, when I was, at the time, we're talking early 2000s, where the league itself was in its infant stage. It had massive success when it first came onto the scene in '96, coming off the World Cup of '94. Right, people were like just interested about soccer because this is the first time in '94 where the World Cup came into the United States. So there was this major interest in the game. Fast forward to 2000s, the interest started to diminish. Teams were playing in massive football stadiums where they would get 10 to 13,000 people at a game in a stadium that holds 70, 80,000. For instance, when I first joined the Galaxy, we're at the Rose Bowl. Rose Bowl at the time had 96,000 seats, and we would get 15, 16,000 people into the stadium, which is in soccer terms good. But the experience was not great, because it doesn't feel like you get immersed into the game when you're in a cavernous venue that holds 96,000 people. But I do feel there's parallel with the MLS and just gaming industry in general. I think it's gone through the wild west point of like trying to establish who you are as a league or as an industry, and working your way up. I think for MLS, it was like, we need brick and mortar stadiums that fits in the needs of what we're looking for. We need stadiums that are 15 to 25,000, and we are community focused, right? I think you can probably think that soccer compared to other sports is really about community, especially in other parts of the world, right? If you say like Manchester and Man City and Liverpool, and even in Wrexham, right? If you watch that show, it's all about the community, and that's the thing. It's like there's a parallel between soccer and gaming. There's a community for every IP that's out there that has an esports component to it, and that's the blood and the heartbeat of what you're doing. And I think there's some parallel there, but also with just the growth of it of MLS, even just gaming. There's some there. It's like it has to go through some growing pains and some stepping stones to get to where they want to be. And I think gaming, even though it's been around, let's say with League of Legends, we're talking what, 13, 14, 15 years now of gaming. Even with R6, it's been around for a good 10 years. It's still growing, and still have to just to go through those growing pains to get to where it wants to be. And that's, I think that's where the parallel is. It's like it's still infant stage, even though we feel like it's been around forever. It's like it's only been around for 10, 15 years for the most part. And for soccer, that's kind of the same way as well. When I was in it, it's like I definitely needed to go through some real solid pain to get to what they want to do. Like when they started building those stadiums and they started attracting more talent, more eyeballs from different parts of the world and from the community for that matter, and also starting to collect, starting to get franchises in markets where they know that the community is going to back it, is really important. So I think end all be all, community is very similar for what I was kind of working with the nutritional stick and ball to gaming today.
Thank you, James, for those insights. It certainly seems like there's a lot of corollaries, with community being one of the primary ones. And we're actually going to jump a little bit ahead in your career with our next question. So why did you actually choose to pursue a career in the games industry, or switch into working in the games industry?
Yeah, I think it was interesting because, I fast forward to working at Saatchi, and Saatchi was working in the sponsorship experiential marketing department, and really understanding partnerships, how, for our client at the time was Toyota USA, and what we look for, our new upcoming, there's sometimes you're developing new landscape documents to understand certain industries, right? I did one for soccer, and trying to explain the soccer landscape to someone that's not familiar with it is like, I'm also speaking German, because there's so much goes into, from club and country. People follow club, but may not be from where they're from. Their team might be from totally abroad, but there's some people that don't understand how a player can play for the country and leave a club that get paid them hundreds of millions of dollars to play for them, but have to go commit to go play for their country in a whether it's CONCACAF or UEFA Cup, whatever it may be. And same thing. We had to do a landscape doc for gaming, and understanding what is and what makes it an industry. And at the time, we're talking 2016, around there, where esports was kind of very niche at the moment. And when it came to sponsors, it wasn't really getting blue chip sponsors. It was really focused on ones that are endemic to the industry, like you're talking about Razer and HP, those type of obviously the one that are really targeted to that demographic. And it was surprising that Toyota was looking into this, because they were looking, well, it's younger. It's a younger demo. And when we're looking for consumers, probably 18 to 21, what industry should we be in? And well, that's how this landscape, understanding of gaming came into play. And the more I looked into it, the more I was like, this is very like soccer to me. Like I was like, this is I can understand it, because it was like people would follow a team that has nothing to do with boundaries of where they're from, right? A person from LA could totally be watching a team that's G2, right? And they love G2 because of whether it's their players or it's because they're a winning organization, whatever it may be. And I was like, that kind of attracted to me. It's like, oh, and then just seeing the numbers of where like the demographic is like really key for people. They're looking for someone that's not older, because all the other sports at the moment in time are just getting older. Even soccer was getting older, right? There's already had 3 generations of soccer, a family that that have been going to games. And so it's like, if anything, if any blue chip sponsors are looking to get into something, this might be a way to go, just because it's becoming younger, and they're looking for those younger demographics. So that's how I got into it. And then it kind of got me into, at the time, that's where Overwatch League was being discussed and talked about. And I was like, oh, who's Blizzard? I really don't know much about Blizzard outside of about World of Warcraft, right? And I was like, interesting. So I started looking into it, and I was like, you know what? And somehow I kind of got myself into moving on the event side over at Blizzard and working on esports. And then but my eye on the prize was mostly on Overwatch, because I was so fascinating that someone's trying to take esports and make it more of a general market product, right? Making it about city-based teams, right? Kind of being very taking the model of sports, where that kind of interests me the most, and that's how I got into gaming, and that's how I got into Blizzard and into Overwatch League and Call of Duty League.
And I know we kind of asked a similar version of this question before, but was there any applicable experience from your time at LA Galaxy or Satachi and Satachi that helped you succeed in Blizzard or Nerd Street or Ubisoft?
Yeah, I think at least at that point in time, the working at Saatchi and Saatchi really kind of give you an understanding of using data driven information to make choices, right? Because they had the money, they had the resources to go in depth of the numbers, understanding a consumer, and doing consumer reports and understanding how do they consume content, what do they read, what do they watch, what do they listen to, and having a really good understanding of a consumer when it comes to their buying habits. And that's kind of learned as like understanding, like using data to really drive your decision making. Especially now, I think it's even more prevalent in gaming. That's how they even make games, right? It's really using that key data. For my days at the Galaxy, I've learned how to work with less and doing more, I guess you could say, throwing things on the wall and seeing what sticks, and not being afraid to try new and different things. Because back in my day at the Galaxy, budgets were very, very small. Like it was surprising when I went from the Galaxy to Saatchi. It's like my overall budget on operations for the team to do an event or do events for the whole season was equivalent like of probably 3% of what we get to do when it comes to my own department in experiential marketing and partnerships. So it's like, wow. But back those days, like you have to be, you have to roll up your sleeves and try new and different things, and not to be afraid to fail in different aspects and learning from it. So I think from that piece from the Galaxy, I think I learned the most, and I kind of still do that today because working in esports, the budgets are tight now these days, right? We have this quote unquote esports winner, and we have to be more nimble, more flexible with less. And having learned that from the Galaxy, I think has paid off a lot. And then also really digging deeper into the numbers, so you're making better decisions. Which means if you're making better decisions, you're spending less, you're being more efficient, and planning, right? And that's the biggest thing too, I think, for esports, is that planning doesn't seem to exist. Things that have very short timelines, and I think when you start planning more efficiently, the bigger your timelines get, because you're being more efficient, and then now you're thinking ahead and thinking of next year and things of that nature. So you have more time to work with, which means you can spend less money because you're not rushing on things, and you can make a wiser decision on whatever it may be, right, when you're building a program.
That makes total sense. And actually, that's a perfect transition to our next question as well. You were kind of hitting it a little bit towards the end there, but what is it like overarching now that you are working in the games industry, and how does it compare to some of those previous industries that you were working in as well?
Yeah, I think you mentioned, like, kind of hit on already. It's like when you worked at Saatchi and worked at the Galaxy, it's like your timelines are much larger, right? I think you have to be, because you just, that's how it works. I think with esports, there's so much pivoting going on. There's so much changes you're going on. And there's a lot of reliant on different elements, right? Like our esports team or our department has to be reliant on the studio and what they're doing, their key beats. And so it's not like we're just working in our own bubble. There's a lot more key stakeholders that we have to consider. Now they're just not like with such just a client of Toyota and getting their thoughts and their feedback. So there's that. There's like those very short timelines, and also pivoting on the spot, like Overwatch and Overwatch League. We did a lot of pivoting, and we were building the league as we were starting the league. We were building basically, we were putting down tracks as the train was moving, right? And that's something where I'm trying to avoid, especially in my job in North America. It's like, how can we just become ahead of our be more ahead so we can make better decisions and think ahead of time, but also it's like, it's hard because the games change, right? Things change, and just being adaptive to that I think is probably the biggest difference now when it comes to gaming and in I think traditional sports and traditional agency work.
Our very first guest was actually a fellow Overwatch League caster. We spoke to Jake Lyon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
yeah. Jake was a good player, right? Player, and they went into casting, and he's still casting today, and he does a great job. I think it was one of those ones you saw him, you're like, he's gonna be involved in Overwatch somehow, some way after his playing days.
Absolutely. And follow-up question, just talking about the different industries. Would you say, is there anything that the games industry can learn from the more traditional companies, or vice versa? Are the more traditional companies, is there something that they can learn from the games industry?
Yeah, I think for the let's say, what the industry can learn from, let's say, agency life or traditional company work. I think it's timelines, right? On the esports side of things, I think, when you're building a game, they obviously have, they think ahead of time, much further along than probably anybody else. But when it comes to esports, it's like, it's a young industry with people that are young doing it as well. So I think with me and my past experiences working on other things, I think brings some type of stability to what we're doing. And that's one thing. It's like, I wish, timelines are much longer. On the other side, I think what I love about esports, like, pivoting is always considered a bad thing, right? When we're talking about like agencies and stuff like that, it's like, oh, we did all this work and then we have to change things. It's like, oh no, it's like moving a oil rig, and it's hard to do it. And I think that's what I love about esports is like, what, if we have to make a change, let's make the change. And it's not as devastating, and it's not as hard. I think it's a much easier way of doing it in esports, because pivoting just means like we have the community is saying this, and we have to maybe pivot because there's this negative sentiment towards our esports program because we're not doing something right, and we can make that change. So the pivoting aspect of it, I wish older agencies and back in my days would consider, just because it was never kind of thought of like, let's changing course midstream, right?
Well, with our next question, we're gonna stick in the games industry,
sure,
which I'm sure will keep all of our viewers happy and entertained.
I bet.
James, could you tell us a little bit about the day-to-day as an associate director of esports of North America at Ubisoft? What does that typically look like?
Sure. My day starts much earlier than it used to. Being a global team, that's what we are. I have to talk to people all in different parts of the world, especially our main global team is based out of France. So that means I gotta be on calls as early as, like, just today, I was on a call at 7 a.m. Right. So my day starts much earlier than normal. After, we're talking about meetings with, about whatever we're planning for, whether it's like, for instance, like stage 2 of our season and putting the plan to that, but also I'm talking to orgs on a daily basis that are part of our R6 ecosystem that are in North America, like for instance, like the SSGs, the Oxygens, the Dark Zeros of the world, and talking to them, see what's going on. I'm kind of like their day-to-day on the org level, not on the competitive level, as like, not on the rules and regulations, but more about like top level, like how's the orgs feeling? Are they, is there anything we need to, they're happy about, not happy about, challenges they're facing within our ecosystem. I'm also, on a day-to-day dealing with our tier 2 and lower programs. So for instance, we just started our Element series, our tier 2 level program this week, and so working with Nursery Gamers to plan on broadcasts, on scheduling, talent, billing, all those, all the boring stuff that goes into actually having partnerships to make sure we're running efficiently, right? And on top of that, X Defiant is another game that's coming from Ubisoft that we have to consider putting the esports strategy together, and that's something we discuss and figure out on a daily basis. So my day kind of goes from putting different hats on within the gaming within our company, and that also includes talking to studios, talking to publishing side of things when it comes to what they're trying to establish when it comes to the KPIs and within the hubs, and it's kind of it's an early day, which is I'm not a morning person, and I've become grown to be one as I've gotten used to waking up at 6 a.m. to start a 7 a.m. day. So, but yeah, that's kind of pretty much my day to day.
That's awesome, James. Thank you. And one of the questions that I had, Ubisoft is obviously massive. There's a lot of different games underneath it. How is sort of the approach on the esports side of things? Are you guys focusing on a few games, like Rainbow Six, For Honor, Brawlhalla, focusing in on building those esports communities? Or is it sort of like you were saying before, there were just tons of hats and it is, no special attention given to any particular game? Or how do you guys approach that?
Right. I think right now, majority of my focus is R6, right? I would say probably a good 90+% is R6 because it's the most established esports program that Ubisoft has. But like I said about with X Defiance coming down the pipe, we start considering what's good for that if there's an esports component to it. I know For Honor and Trackmania and even Brawlhalla, they have esports programs, but if it really focuses mostly on the studio to do that, and they're much smaller in scale, and that really as a large ecosystem as R6. R6 is massive compared to all the other ones that they do. But I know for instance, even Trackmania for us in North America, not a very prominent game that's played all that much in my region. Very strong in Europe, right? So my counterpart in Europe really focuses on that Trackmania component to it. Probably not as much as R6 as well. And also with like Brawlhalla and those other ones, it's like we are there to help support and give guidance on any esports question that they may have to figure out that they're not doing, but a lot of it's outsourced already to like third-party groups, which I think I forget which vendors are handling what game, but in general, like we're there to be more of a supporting role on those components. So, but majority of my time is R6 just because it's a behemoth of a program, and then the new game coming in like X Defiant is another one that's coming in. Even Just Dance, to me it's like coming into Ubisoft. I didn't even know Just Dance was even an esports, but now it's something that's being considered in the Olympics, right? It's a component where my counterparts in Europe are handling as a big piece on a Olympic standpoint, which is that's a pretty big undertaking just because dealing with those governing bodies can be cumbersome and very detailed.
That makes sense. Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not jealous of them when it comes to that partnership because it's rewarding, but also they dealing with governing bodies. I've done it many times with my days with the Galaxy, working with like FIFA or CONCACAF. There's very minute details that have to be considered, and it does take a lot of time and effort to make those things be successful.
They don't move quick.
No, not at all. And they're very particular about how things work as well. So it's you have to kind of learn how that works.
That makes sense. Yeah. And I was actually up in Montreal when For Honor was being released. Mm-hmm. And I remember Ubisoft, I don't know if it was some kind of release party, but they were doing it at different like LAN barcades, right, mm-hmm. across Montreal. And I remember that was really, really awesome. It was a fun experience.
Yeah, and they have a pretty strong, and that's the thing. It's like with For Honor, it has a esports component to the game, but it's a very niche spot, and it's like and they do a great job of working with that community to make sure they're doing something on a competitive level, which is really, really great.
James, if I could ask, what are some of your favorite parts of working with or at Ubisoft? Is there any cool projects or events that stand out in your mind?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like I love collaborating. I think it's something where I've come to realize it's like, I don't know everything. I know a lot of things, but I don't know everything, and it takes a team to really develop something to be successful. And so for me, the collaboration aspect of things is what really motivates me in my job, right? Even I'm not even talking about internally, externally as well. Working with orgs, working with teams, working with streamers, individuals, third party vendors. I like the way of one common goal to accomplish whatever we're trying to accomplish, whatever program. So that what motivates me with my time at Ubisoft, and it's also like my team that I work with and the global team in general in the esports side of thing, a great group of people, very passionate about what they do, professional, but also very funny and fun to work with. So that's, I think my day to day is like what can drive me. I think with everybody, I think any job that you do, I think it's the people that makes the job fun. Right. And if you're not around people that are not fun, I think your job does not become as fun as well. So that'd be, I would say, my day to, I guess when it wakes me up in the morning to be ready to go to work every day.
Hard agree with that. Hard
Yeah.
agree. And to transition that into our next question, we have a lot of passionate, bright, young students who want to find their own place in the gaming industry as well. So what advice might you give to students who are looking to find their own job or career in either game operations or events or anything within the industry?
Yeah, I mean, if you could, I would say this: like, if you even look at my career, right? I don't say I've hopped from different things. I've been in careers for long periods of time, from soccer to agency to gaming, and I think for me, it's like just because let's say your overall goal is to go into gaming, it's like it may not have to be your first job. Doesn't have to be into gaming. It maybe it's something like you're really passionate about, like you have on the screen here. Like you might be really passionate about media or the back end on the hardware side of thing or networking, whatever it may be. You may find something like, I might find something that's in media that has nothing to do with gaming, but you're getting experience understanding working in media, right? So I guess, my advice would be like, don't be hung up of like if you're working into something, find the passion that you like to do as a job, not the industry. So I'm not saying don't go into an industry you want to go into, but more like, really hone into into a certain element that you really are passionate about, and take whatever job you feel like you're going to learn the most of to get to your end goal. Whether it's like, I want to own my own, let's say esports org. You know what? You're gonna that voyage or that path may not be A to B. It may be A, B, C, D, and it might go around and go different directions. And don't be discouraged of doing that. It's like it's hone into your skills. Once you get your skills together, you'll eventually, I think you'll end up where you want to be. And I think that's the key thing. It's like you don't have to at first, when I graduated college, I wanted to go into music. I wanted to be in the not a singer or performer. I wanted to be on the back end. I wanted to be an agent. I wanted to work on the things, and I did. I worked in the mailroom at an agency called APA, and I worked my way up to be an agent assistant. And I realized I hated it. didn't like it. A little more cutthroat than I wanted it to be for my sake. Right? You have to have a certain personality to be able to cut deals with managers and with tour promoters, whatever it may be. And so that's kind of, I fell back into like, let me go back to my passion with soccer, right? And I kind of went back into playing soccer, coaching soccer, and then eventually found my way at LA Galaxy, right? And to a point, it's like, I enjoy being involved in soccer, but I enjoy the marketing component of my job, right? And that's kind of how I got into Saatchi, and then I kind of got interested into gaming, but yet. So there's a still component of my concentration of learn from all of my past experiences has got me to where I am in gaming. Right. I wouldn't say I would. It's like, my ultimate goal with gaming when I was younger, because there was not such thing. There was no industry at the time. But my thing would be like, what my expertise of marketing and strategy and event management has got me to where I am today in Ubisoft. And that's my thing is like just hone into what you like to do as a career, and eventually the industry you want to be in, you'll get into it based on your experience, right? Get that experience first, and then you'll find out where you'll end up being. If it's gaming, awesome, and you'll get there.
A little bit of a more specific follow-up. If you're looking at a resume or your colleagues, or if you are in a potential interview with a potential applicant, are there, and obviously this depends on the role position they're applying for, but are there any hard skills, soft skills, educational components that are a must for you, that you prioritize, that you see as really important?
I like to see consistency. I think that's my thing. It's like not consistency, like, I could tell on a resume if someone's jumping from job to job to job. Sometimes they're just doing it to work up the ladder rather than really taking the time to craft their own experience and abilities. So for me, it's like how I look at resumes is really focus on, the time there was at a certain location and what they've learned, and their gradual, gradual improvement of their, I'll say job titles, but just their going up into different realms. That's one thing I like to I think is key for me. Education is always good. I think education is it's like your basic. It's like that's your foundation. Like you went to a college, you accomplished college. That's great. And then everything else really is like it's focused on like what your key concentration is. Of course, we would be at the time if I'm interviewing somebody looking at a resume. They would be somewhat understanding of what that job is, right? If it's in marketing or into like community relations, you would love to see, a lot of, experience in that realm, but more to dig a little deeper. It's more like, you spend this much time at this job. Let's say it's like you were only there for a year. Why were you there for a year? Was it because it was, love to know, understand it. Was it because it wasn't a great place to work? Is it because you had a better opportunity? But if I see like this cadence, like always been like a year, like when I grew up, it's like you spend 2 years on something, whether you like it or not, just to say, you know what, I completed it. And right. And now that's changed. The whole dynamic of like going from job to job has changed, and it doesn't have a negative, view towards that. And I think for me, it's like I'm still that old school thought of like, you know what, I want to see where you've completed something and maintain it. Even like when things get hard, how do you kind of got through that? And if it's because you worked at a job for 3 years, but you hated the last year of it because it was so difficult because of the people you work with, but how did you your ability to kind of get through those things, and how did you keep sane and still doing quality work? So I think that type of level of consistency in a resume is what I kind of look for.
And I assume when you look at a resume and you see that somebody has been in the same company for many years and that they've grown in their role, that kind of does tell you that they have the soft skills, the interpersonal, yes, the communication skills, the problem solving, critical thinking that they need to succeed in any role.
Yeah, I think hard skills now it's so hard because it's like things change now. Like everything changed. Technology changes the way, like for instance, when I first started, Outlook was like the thing. Like, oh my gosh, email. Now it's like AI is now kind of taking up the next phase of like making your job much more efficient. So it's like those hard skills it can vary, but I think the soft skill element is very key. I think people don't talk enough about those soft skills because I think that's how you develop relationships, whether it's partners, or third-party partners, or how you work together within your own group. Those are key, and understanding how you can have empathy towards one another is very key. Like that's my thing I look for in general, is like have an understanding how, my job I feel is hard, but like I may not understand what other people are going through in a different department. That's why they're getting, it's hard to get answers or to get some progress going, is because they may have 45 other tasks they have to do before they get to mine. And so soft skills is, I think, like you mentioned, Peter, I think it's a really key component these days, more than hard, to be quite honest.
And just everybody's human. You gotta treat them as such. It
exactly.
makes sense.
Exactly. We're not just a cog, right? That's when you start feeling like you're a cog in the wheel. That's when you feel like you're undervalued. And I think everybody just wants to feel valued at what they do, whether they're a coordinator or a vice president. I think everybody wants to feel they are valued by other people and have some type of empathy.
Very well said, James. We'll jump over into our last question. Having said all of this, why do you think schools today, K-12 and beyond, should support their students' love for gaming?
Because it brings, I don't think people underestimate what gaming brings to people's lives, right? From problem solving to collaboration to teamwork. I think just because it's in front of a screen, it's no different than what people do when they do crew or do soccer or basketball. It's the same components. It's just, technology has made it so you don't have to do it next to each other, right? So I think they should support it because I think gaming also keeps students aware of technology as it goes. I think gaming is one of those industries where it is always involving technology and the next evolution of technology somehow, some way. And so I think gaming helps people adapt to whatever that may be. Right. I think it's so hard for older folks like myself to, I'm lucky enough, like I keep myself interested and motivated and understanding and being curious. I think gaming now, it just keeps people in line of what's going on in the technology world and also communication. And I think it's more than just, waste of time. When I was a kid, it was always considered a waste of time. And now I feel like there's some benefit, even if they're playing games that I don't get. Like for instance, like open worlds. Like when Minecraft came about, I was like, there's no objective to this. You're just building. There's nothing. I don't get it. But then when you get more into it, it's like, no, it's like it's basically engineering a lot of times. It's like they're building things. It's basically digital Legos in a way, and then there's benefits. Even like in R6, there's benefits. There's a lot of it's like I think R6 is a shooter's game that's more towards like chess than it is like checkers. I'm not saying like Call of Duty is checkers and it's not. There's no strategy to it, but I feel like there's a lot more strategy goes into R6 than anything else because it deals with counteracting whatever the team is doing when it comes to operator or gun or whatever it may be. And there's a lot of strategy goes to it. I think understanding strategy helps everybody in the long run. Whether you're playing R6, there's gonna be strategy mind think of when you're doing strategy for some proposal you're doing for work in later stages in your life. So I think there's definitely benefits to it that people forget about. They just think it's just it's all about entertainment. It's more about that. It's entertainment is great and that makes people more engaging to it, but there is a lot that you can learn from it.
Absolutely. I was just at a conference last week and someone there was making the analogy between Rainbow Six and chess, and they were talking about that analogy and how it was apt there.
Yeah.
And I think you actually hit the nail on the head on the first part too, where gaming is sort of a gateway to technological literacy. Another anecdote here, my 7-year-old cousin was talking to me about frame rates in Fortnite and why frame rates are important and how to get better frames, He understood that part because it was relevant to him in winning in Fortnite, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, sad thing is I wasn't good at chess and I'm not good at R6. That's that is the consistent thing I know is that it's a game that it takes complex thinking to play it, and it's not just going in there throwing grenades and shooting up opponents. So you're right, and you're right. It's the literacy aspect of technology is that it kind of is parallel to from tablets to PCs to consoles to how things are viewed or used. Is it kind of is like gaming is that stepping stone for a lot of young adults.
And one real quick follow-up question here, James. So we hit the why is it important for schools to support their students? How might how might you suggest schools go about supporting students?
Yeah, that's a great question, because there's many different ways you can go about it. I think number one, on bias wise, I think esports, I think, is a big piece, especially on the high school, even junior high level or middle school level. Is, I think, needs to be. You can see it. It's right now, it's being more accepting in a lot of school districts, but I think it still has a ways to go, to be quite honest. And I can understand some games are probably not appropriate for certain ages. Totally get that. That's why Minecraft and Rocket League and all these other ones are really great entry level into competitive gaming. But I think that piece is like the competitive gaming aspect. I think it needs to be more involved in certain schools, and to kind of to show of teamwork. Because I think that's the benefits of, for me, when I played in soccer. I think there's the same components that I do in soccer that are probably also that are in esports, where you have to work with each other, you have to communicate with each other, you deal with conflicts all the time within your own team, and those things are becoming more and more not not as available as they used to in schools, right? Schools are doing less about arts and other things that's not either math, English, or science. So I think those are key piece of it. And I feel, how exactly that works as well. There's got to be more funding in those areas, right? And also there needs to be a much more involvement in a community level. I'm talking about like not just online community, but actually physical community, like cities getting more involved in these things. I think that's a key piece, is like, if you can have kids that are, I live in a certain part of Southern California where there's not as much programs as should be. And I think gaming is a great program to get kids not going outside and doing things they shouldn't be doing, and getting inside and being a part of something that's pretty cool. And it's just like how getting them involved in soccer and basketball or YMCA, boys club, whatever it may be, boys and girls club, excuse me. And so it's, that piece of the thing is the how. And I think if people, when I say people, I mean like communities and cities get more involved, I think they will see the benefits of it. Right. I think cities that are starting to lean more into it. I think like Atlanta is one good example. I think a city that does a lot in gaming, whether it's in the industry or even on a local level. They're getting more and more involved in it, and they see the importance of it. And I think that's the how. It's real about funding and the right people to get involved and keep pushing that the envelope to make sure that gaming is part of their overall culture within the city.
Absolutely. And the great thing is that even though slowly, it is moving in the right direction. I mean, even talking about Southern California, I know we worked with quite a few school districts here to help them create sustainable esports program, whether it's Anaheim High School Districts or Conejo Valley in Thousand Oaks. Mm-hmm. So we're definitely very big on supporting our home state, because that is where our company was founded.
Yeah. And I think, to me, honestly, it's like, it's just like my time at Saatchi trying to explain the landscape of soccer to gaming to people that are just not familiar with it. It's like it's more education on that point than anything else. I think if you can start getting the key people that make decisions when it comes to funding and programming within a city or a community or a school, the better opportunities I think gaming and will become a part of their overall ecosystem within their schools or in their city, just because they're not familiar with it. Then no one's going to put forward funding in something they're not familiar with or comfortable with. You got to start getting them more comfortable. Of course, as generations come, people have a better understanding of this, right? But I think we're still at a stage where they're like, what is this? We don't even know what, this is, they see it as something that's very foreign to them. And I think the more it becomes more relevant to what they do, the more they'll understand like how important it is.
Absolutely. Well, unfortunately, I think we are out of time here. But James, a huge thank you to you for being our panelist today and sharing your experiences with our students and educators. I know they will appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate it anytime. It's like I'm happy to be a part of this, and hopefully more people like myself do this, and can be the banging the drum of gaming and how it definitely has a positive impact on people's lives.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you again, James. Stay safe and happy gaming.
You too. Happy gaming, guys.